still don't have a proper intro. One day it'll come soon. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Battleground Countdown. I am Aaron Canola, of course, your host for this evening. Joining me on the co-host chair tonight is Mr. Jacob Barber. Jacob, how you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited about the topic.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And this was one of those, like, when we first conceived the show a few months ago and did that initial test run, like, Disney animation was definitely something I wanted to do. Of course, this year was Disney's 100th anniversary, and we all know that the lynch point of Disney is its animation. It's been a financial savior in the past for the studio. It's been the passion projects for the studio is animation. Even in the last 20, 30 years, obviously we're not covering Pixar tonight, but I think we all know the fact that Disney has an investment in Pixar. And when Disney's maybe had its lower points, Pixar's had its high points. And it's such an ingrained part of the company. I mean, even literally, I believe the day before we're recording this, that yesterday they announced the shortlist for some of the upcoming Oscar categories. And Once Upon a Studio, the short film they made dedicated to 100 years of many things at Disney, including animation, very much so, was included in that shortlist for best live action. I think it was live action short film or animated. I don't know what it falls under. It's kind of both. So
yeah, I'd have to look it up because
I do know it made a shortlist.
Yeah.
So like it is just such a part of the studio. Obviously, my perception of you, which is part of the reason I've invited you here, I like to phrase it this way. My perception of you is that you are an animation fan. What is your connection to Disney?
Yeah, no, I'm a pretty big animation fan. It's probably the genre I've watched the most. Because not only does it gear towards kids, but there's also some really good adult animation out there. As far as Disney goes, it was just a big part of my childhood. There is a movie on this list that we'll bring up that I watched like so many times growing up, like almost every day before kindergarten as a kid. So, and people that know me, like, there's no secret what my number one's going to be, so it's not going to shock anyone. But no, like every movie on this list, I absolutely love. Yeah, Disney is just something that I've grown up with, and as an adult, I'm not ashamed to say I still love most of their movies. It's not quite as good as they used to be, but they've had some pretty good stuff come out recently. But yeah, no, I'm a big Disney fan.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. I'm trying to remember. I know at one point, I think it may have been for Henry. I think we did a Disney draft together. So I roughly remember like what was selected. I don't know if I remember what you would have picked first or what would have. So yeah, I guess it'll be a bit of a shock. We'll see what comes up. So normally, again, because obviously the Disney 100th anniversary inspired this also to go with Disney's 100th anniversary, they released Wish. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's not on your list.
It's not. I haven't been able to see it yet. So
okay, you haven't seen it.
Not
Okay,
in the top 11.
Okay. I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on it? Because I won't go too much into spoilers because you haven't seen it yet. But Wish to me was unfortunate. I don't think it's any secret that Disney's 100th anniversary has kind of been a bit of a disaster. And Wish was unfortunately for me kind of the personification of that, which is so much potential just not met. I think the movie has a lot of really interesting ideas. I think the world they've built is incredibly interesting. This idea of having a king with access to magic who has the ability to both take your wish from you so that you don't live your life with this heart's desire you may never achieve, but then also the ability to grant it. I think the darker elements, without going into detail, if people are watching this haven't seen the trailers or whatever, it's not like it was the best marketed Disney film. The darker elements to that I think were also really interesting. Chris Pine, I think, plays a decent villain, definitely more scene chewy, but he plays a decent villain. Ariana DeBose is a hell of a singer. But for all the intrigue and the interesting elements that the movie sets up, it just doesn't really deliver on any of it. It's got one of the most annoying animal sidekicks in all of Disney history, which is, of course, a big thing for Disney's animal sidekicks. I love Alan Tudyk. Him doing what sounds like a Patrick Stewart impression for this goat for 90 minutes just doesn't work. The movie plays what should have been a decent twist as this like streamlined, like you're just waiting for it to happen. Um,
Mhm.
it's the 100th anniversary. You've had so many brilliant songwriters. I'm sure we'll talk about some of them in this over the years, write music for Disney, and you go with Julia Michaels, a pop singer, and like her producer, and that's who made the soundtrack. And it doesn't fit. It's not great comparatively.
Mhm.
Um, and frankly, this movie for me cemented my opinion that listen, Frozen was a big hit, and I don't even think it's all that bad a movie. But this team, because obviously, for anyone who knows anything about Disney, right, they have these teams of animators that sort of rotate and take on a film and then take on a film and take on a film. And you can go through the history and find these teams of animators that have worked on a couple of films in their time at the studio. Of the teams working now for Disney, I think Chris Buck and Jennifer Lee are easily the weakest, which is a shame because obviously they're super important to the studio. Frozen was a huge hit. Jennifer Lee's now running the company. Like they're a huge part of the studio. I get why they were picked to make this film. I just think they consistently turn out the weakest stuff. Like Frozen, for being as huge as it was never in consideration for this top 11 list. And the sequel, which is still good, again, nowhere in consideration for this list. And when you look at the stuff that they made beforehand, I think a lot of it, like I think when you look at both of their filmographies, without getting into it, I think the strongest credit on either of their filmographies at Disney is Jennifer Lee was a co-writer on Wreck-It Ralph. But again, that's not their project. That was somebody else's project that she
Yeah.
helped write. It just,
Right.
for me, they're the weakest duo the studio has, and I think they were the wrong choice to make this film. Um, but yeah, but I think when you look at Disney throughout the year, like that's kind of been the pattern of this 100th anniversary is all these films with so much potential and just none of them went anywhere, right? Ant-Man, a solid trilogy, like a solid two films, could have had a great trilogy. Jonathan Majors as Kang, not really going to go anywhere. Guardians of the Galaxy was a great film, but it was the conclusion of something. I mean,
Right.
yeah, there's threads left there for the future, but you know, how quickly are we going to come back to that?
Right. Yeah.
The Marvels could have set up something huge for the future. It didn't really work out. Elemental, Pixar's grand return to theaters, didn't fail as hard as the rest of them. That's kind of the highlight of that movie's performance. And Haunted Mansion also came out.
And there was an Indiana Jones movie or something like that.
Oh God, yeah, that too. I didn't even hate that movie. I just forgot it existed. Um, so yeah, man. So you know what? Disney could use a pep talk. They could use some propping. So let's talk about the best of their 100 years of animation, none of which came out this year. Uh,
Right.
with that said, though, with that preamble, let's go ahead and hop into the actual episode. Um, the way this works, we've both separately put together our top 11 lists. Why top 11? Because it's not 10, which is traditional, and it's not 12. Shout out to you, Malcolm. So we'll have a top 11 list that we've put together separately for this. The way it's going to work, Jacob, as our guest, you're going to get to go first. You're going to do your 11 through 8. I'll do my 11 through 8. You're going to do your 7 through 4. Then I'll do my 7 through 4. For our top 3, we'll trade back and forth. One apiece till we have completed our lists. At the end, we will put together the official top 11 list of the show. I'll be keeping notes throughout just to make sure we can sort of concisely figure out whose was where and whatever else. And then the only other note is if we mention a film that is somewhere else on someone else's list in a different section, we'll just say punt or wait or whatever a term you'd like to use, and we will hold on till it's at the higher slot. So, for example, if Jacob's 11 is my 8. We'll talk about it there because it's still in the bottom section of our list. But if my 11 is his 7, then we'll wait till we get to his 7 because it's in the next section of the list. With that said, do you have any questions, man? Or are you ready to go?
I don't. I'm ready to go.
All right. So let's go ahead and jump into it, sir. Start us off. What is your number 11?
Yeah, and this wasn't my number 11 about 30 minutes ago, but as I was looking at the list and reordering some things, I think the soundtrack played a big part in this because I love the soundtrack.
Okay.
And the movie's pretty decent too. My number 11 is Tarzan.
Okay, that is not on my list, so go ahead.
All right. I think we all know the story of Tarzan, boy in the jungle, gets lost because his parents their ship gets lost and he's now he's getting raised by monkeys. Um, and I just think this is a fun movie. I think Tarzan with the apes is just a lot of fun, and the elephant whose name is escaping me at the moment.
Oh my
But
god, what is the elephant's name?
yeah, I
I got
cannot
you.
remember for the life of me. But Tarzan and Rosie O'Donnell playing a boy gorilla. That's always fun. Um, but I think it's a lot of fun. I love when the other humans get introduced, Jane and Clayton and Jane's dad, whose name is also escaping me. Why am I not remembering names tonight? I don't
Okay,
know.
Tantor is the elephant.
Tantor, yes. And is it Kerchak?
Uh, apparently Rosie O'Donnell is a girl.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a
According to
boy this whole time.
Wikipedia, it's a girl.
Thought it was a boy this whole time.
And who? What other character name?
Uh, Jane's dad.
Jane's dad.
Yeah, is it just Jane's dad? I swear they said his
Archimedes.
name. Yeah, I knew it was something sciencey. But no, I just
Kerchak is Tarzan's gorilla father. That's what that is.
Gorilla Father, yes, that too
Yeah.
does. And then the mother, I love their relationship, Tarzan and the mother gorilla. I think she's very motherly, and it shows their relationship is very very cool. But yeah, I think seeing Tarzan interact with the humans when they get introduced is a lot of fun. Like he's seeing all these things that he hasn't seen before, and sort of the apes, and they're trashing the camp. Which, by the way, great song in the movie.
Yeah.
That whole sequence. Shout out to Phil Collins, who did not have to go as hard as he did on this soundtrack. I think this is. I mean, if we were ranking soundtracks, this one would be pretty high up there for me. But since we're ranking the movies as a whole, I do have it just a little bit lower because I think the villain. While he's memorable, he's not like a top tier villain for me. I think he does a good job, but it is what it is. I ultimately bumped it up because of that soundtrack. I think the soundtrack has some bangers in here, like "You'll Be in My Heart" is a great song. "Strangers Like Me" is just. These are songs that I listen to. If they pop up on my playlist, I'm not skipping them. So
Yeah, this definitely has like one of the most listenable soundtracks. Like you can genuinely just enjoy the songs on their own merit.
yeah, absolutely, and it's got another great villain death. I don't know if you realize this, but if you go back and watch most of these '90s Renaissance movies, the villain falls to his death.
Yo, they they
They
die.
do, and there's no doubt at all. Clayton is dead.
Yeah, do they? I can't remember. Do they show a shot of him getting hanged, or is it just implied?
I I don't know if it. I think they do, but it's brief. Like I think
Okay,
they see him. I don't think he like hangs. I think like maybe it snaps and he falls again, if I'm remembering correctly.
maybe. Okay. 90s
Um,
Disney was dark, people. Like if you
it
don't,
was, but yeah, no, I love
Hellfire exists.
yeah yeah. I just love Tarzan as he's growing into like this more human. Like he's been raised by apes, obviously. I love as he's just growing into this more human person with Jane and Archimedes. Thanks for looking that up. Um, and killer soundtrack. I think it's got some fun moments. I love everything that Tarzan does as a kid. And he just wants to be accepted. Which, as a 4 or 5 year old, like as somebody who works with kids just want to play with other kids and they just want to be included. So it's also a very relatable movie for kids.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know if they intended that, but it works. So yeah, again, just great relationships, great soundtrack, and that's why I have Tarzan at number 11.
yeah. So we talked about this before we started recording. Like I legitimately have like 8 honorable mentions where at various points these films were on the list to some extent, and then I watched another Disney film and it's like, oh fuck, that might replace it, and then eventually it did. Tarzan is one of those 8. So Tarzan for many years, like as a kid, Tarzan was one of the films that I didn't gravitate to as a kid. Um, The songs are great, but I have always found the like just Phil Collins start singing thing rather distracting. I don't know, maybe if I would have liked it more if it was a musical. It's just a me thing. The songs are actually very,
Mhm.
very good. And Tarzan was a film where I rewatched it a couple of years ago as a part of a essentially I was challenged by someone when I said there was a bunch of Disney films from that era that I wasn't a fan of, and they were like, "Well, give them a rewatch now that you're older. See if you like them." And most of them I still did not like, but Tarzan was the one where my opinion really changed on it, and something about
Mm.
it clicked now that I'm older. And definitely, it's quite an enjoyable film. It's a fun adventure movie, like the swinging through the jungle and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
The him on the vines, that is impressive animation. Like the way that he moves is so fluid. And you're right, the soundtrack, while I still think it is a little distracting that just somebody comes in and starts singing Tarzan's emotions while you're looking at him, the songs are great. They are genuinely really great songs. And you're right, Phil Collins knew that he didn't have to go this hard because he then went and did Brother Bear and didn't go that hard. So, no, there's a lot to enjoy with Tarzan, man. Definitely, again, legitimately like 20 films could have been on this list. So I respect the pick, man. What's your number 10?
My number 10 is Brother Bear.
Oh, well, now I feel bad that I just shit on it. I clearly not on my list, so go ahead.
No, and this time it's not for the soundtrack because I don't think that I agree that the soundtrack is not as good, but I don't know. There's just something about the story that I
Mm,
really enjoy, and again maybe it's because if you would have asked me as like a kid or well not a kid because this came out when I was in my teen years. So I think this is 2003, so I
yes.
would have just been a teenager. So this wasn't something that I watched as a teenager. And I'm like, oh, that's a really cool movie. But recently, like as I've been rewatching it as an adult, and maybe it's just as someone who's worked with kids for over a decade now, I think those sort of movies where it's like this kind of big brother relationship. I think I gravitate towards them a little bit more, and that's one thing here that really stuck out to me was because you know he he no Kenai is the little one. Oh,
Coda?
Coda, Coda. The yeah, the older one. Um, he didn't he wanted nothing to do with this little bear at first. He just wanted to go where he needed to go to turn back into a human, and seeing again the relationship grow between these two bears was really heartwarming. There's some good humor in here. I think the moose, meese, whatever the plural is for moose. I think they're absolutely hilarious. Shout out Rick Moranis, and I'm very sorry that I don't know who voiced the other one.
I got you. It's one of
But
his it's one of his Second City buddies, I think, right?
oh, okay, that would make sense. Rick Moranis is just such a household name for everyone that he's easy to remember.
Is
Uh, I'm,
was this Moranis' final role?
I
It would have
believe
been about that
so.
time.
I believe so. Yeah, this was his final role. Um,
Dave
uh,
Thomas.
Dave Thomas. Okay, that does
Yeah.
sound familiar. So yeah.
Who was on Second City with him. So
Hmm, okay. Um, but yeah, I love how this movie begins. They're hunting this bear who and after the ceremony, he didn't like what he got, and I think it's well shot, beautifully. I think this I don't know that a lot of people would say this is beautifully animated, but I think there are beautiful animated sequences
I
in
would
this
agree with you.
movie.
The Northern Lights look really great in this film.
Yeah, yeah, especially that one. That's the one that sticks out. Um, but yeah, again, a great adventure movie. Um, another really solid Phil Collins soundtrack. It's not to the level of Tarzan, but I still think, I mean, because none of the song titles are sticking out to me. Where I could name at least two or three in Tarzan off the
Yeah.
top of my head. Um, I think just that brother relationship and that kid relationship and that realization towards the end of the movie that the bear that they hunted and killed out of revenge was this little bear's mom, and
Mhm.
You see that remorse. Because he has grown in a relationship with him, and I think anyone who has an older brother um, just wants to hang out with him and just wants to, again, be included. And I think this movie does that well. Like I said, lots of good humor. I think again, beautiful animated sequences and solid voice cast. Shout out to Joaquin Phoenix as
Yeah,
as
what
the main as the main
I always
main guy
forget
here.
that I always forget that Joaquin Phoenix is the voice of the main bear. That's still
Yeah,
strange to especially Joaquin Phoenix now.
right.
Like that's weird to think about. Yeah, so this was the final theatrical role of Rick Moranis. His final movie was when he reprised his role in the sequel for the direct to DVD sequel.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
That
Yeah, I
was his
couldn't remember
technical
if he did
final
or
film
not.
role. Yeah, I think those two were the only two that did. Because it's Patrick Dempsey. I remember that because I remember watching that movie and thinking, "Wow, he sounds nothing like him in the first one."
Yeah, I I didn't
Yeah.
watch. I don't think I've
So
seen the sequel.
Brother Bear, because I just talked about with Tarzan, Brother Bear was a part of this contingent of like basically watch all these movies again from the early 2000s and see what you think now. Brother Bear to me is kind of weirdly in like the same category that I would put Up, which is I think it starts out really strong, and at the beginning, like all the human stuff with him, I really connect to the emotionality of it. I think it's really well done. And then it kind of just loses me when he becomes a bear. And I don't think it's exactly a bad movie. I think it's one of the better movies of that era. Certainly, I mean, compared to what comes after, because immediately next is like Home on the Range and Chicken Little. It's like, no, it does not deserve to be lumped in with any of those. It kind of loses me a little bit. I think the first like maybe 20 minutes is really strong, and then everything after that is just good. Um, but your point of, and I think it's like so many years of Disney films and so many different types of films, like the fact that working with little kids, you do sort of assume like a big brotherish type role. And so I could certainly see how a movie like this would connect to someone who's in that position. You know what I mean? Like I do understand that. And certainly you're right, the voice acting is strong. Uh and I mean it has Rick Moranis. How do you not enjoy that at the very
Right.
least? Like
Yeah.
I've seen all three Honey I Shrunk the Kids movies only because Rick Moranis is in
Yeah. You think I
them.
watch The Little
Man, what's your
Giants
number?
just because? No, I watch it because Rick Moranis.
I watch good movies because Rick Moranis is in them. I just watched Little Shop of Horrors for the first time. Why? Because Rick Moranis is in it. Why not?
For the first time. Wow.
Yeah, never seen it. Great
Oh,
movie.
nice.
Great
Yeah,
movie.
I love that movie.
What's your number 9, man?
My number 9 is the only movie where I will say I liked the remake more. My number
Okay.
9 is The Jungle Book.
Oh, I 100% agree with you, and it's not on my list. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I like both of these. I like the remake because I think it expands a little bit more.
Yeah,
Um,
this, and I'll get out there because I don't have very much to say about this one, so I'll just jump in quick. This is the only remake truly that I think makes this film a better movie. This one for me has always just been it's fun, and then I don't think about it after that. But tell me why you love it, man.
well, honestly, I think that's it right there. I just think it's a fun movie. I think it's just one that I can
Yeah,
turn on,
fair.
and for an hour and 20 minutes or whatever, I'm having fun. If I'm not paying attention because I have to go do something, it's fine because I can look up and I'm gonna know where the movie is because it's just one of those movies that I've seen I don't know how many times because it's just such an
Fair.
easy movie to watch and an easy movie to put on. I think it's got some really fun characters. I think Blue is probably one of the most fun Disney characters there is. It's got some pretty fun songs. I think the "I Want to Be Like You" sequence with King Louis
Yeah.
is a lot of fun, and in the remake, it's made a little bit darker, which I absolutely loved that choice
Yeah.
that Jon Favreau made. But in here, it's light, it's fun. It does get a little dark towards the end with Shere Khan and that final battle. I think Shere Khan is a great villain. Um, and again, like I don't really have much to say either. It's a fun movie that I can put on for 80 minutes and just enjoy. It's one that I've gone back to several times when I just wanted to watch something fun.
That's totally fair. I like. Genuinely, I watched this is not one of the ones I got a chance to rewatch. I rewatched so many movies for this that I think I'm at the point where it's like once this is done, I feel like I have to go back and just give all of them a once over now. All the ones I didn't get to, you just see it again, after however many years.
Yeah.
But I agree with what you said. Like this is one of the ones I was talking about before the show started. Obviously, I grew up during the 2000s, but my parents spent 10 years collecting an extensive VHS collection of all these various kids' films, many of them being Disney movies. So I did not really grow up with the movies that were coming out when I would have been growing up. There's actually a number of them I did not see until I was at least like a teenager, or at the very least old enough to watch like Disney Channel and like remember it.
Mm.
So like this was one of them they had a VHS of, so I'm sure I saw it a number of times as a kid, and yeah, certainly it's just entertaining. Like it's just
Yeah.
sheer fun, which I get. All right, so then what's your number 8, man?
My number 8 is Zootopia.
That is my number 8 as well.
All right.
There we go. We finally got a crossover. Go ahead, man. Tell me about Zootopia.
Yeah, and I think it's another one. I love that they didn't go musical. I really like it when they don't go with like the musical aspect, um, which is funny because I think this is the only one that doesn't have a musical aspect to it that's on my list. But
Well,
I
technically, you do got that Shakira song that plays like 3 times,
that's true.
but it's
But
not a musical, and I agree with you. It's for the better.
yeah, and because I don't know that this movie would work as a musical. I just and to think that it's still so relevant to the world 7 years later, just kind of with the themes that it deals with. Um, I love that it's a movie where you haven't heard of a bunny cop, but guess what? This bunny's going to be a cop, um, and she's going to do whatever it takes to get there, and she does. And the sure she might be put on duty that she doesn't want to, but she's going to make the most of it, and she's gonna rise through. Um, and I think it's another solid voice cast here. I think
Yeah.
Jason Bateman as Nick Wolf is really solid. Um, JPO and I did a countdown of voice acting, and he nearly made the list because I just think he does such a solid performance here. Um, yeah, I love the mystery aspect of it. It's just I feel like it's just such a different Disney movie than we're used to. There's no princesses. There's no sure there's a villain, but it's not your typical villain. There's no really love story here.
Mhm.
It's a buddy cop movie with some good comedy, some good mystery, and just when you think it's over, they bring in that twist. No, actually, this little spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen this. This little lamb is the villain, and it's a twist that I didn't see coming. I heard some people say, "Oh, that twist wasn't necessary," and I'm like, I think it's kind of fun. The person you least expect as the villain or as the bad guy is the bad guy. Um, again, yeah, solid voice cast. I think Idris Elba is the voice of his he's, he's the mayor, right?
No,
Is it
Simmons is the mayor.
Simmons is the mayor.
Elba's
He's
the
the
police.
he's the chief. Yeah, that's what it
Was it
is.
Pogo,
I always,
right, or something like that?
yeah, something like that. I always get those two confused. But yeah,
Both
again,
very
just
good in the movie.
yeah, and just solid voices. Um, I'd just if those two could just do some voice work together on like anything, I'm there because I think
Well,
they've just got these such distinct voices, and I think they
listen, all we got to do is find Elba a role in Spider Verse 3, and then we can just slide Simmons back in again into that
oh,
role.
yeah, absolutely.
And
I'm sure they can.
I can very, very quickly imagine Elba playing like an alternate version of like maybe a Spider Punk. I could see him and Kaluuya playing two different versions of the same character.
Oh, I could. I think you're onto something.
If we're not pulling out another random original Spider Man, like if we want
Right.
to go that route, I could totally see it work. Yeah.
But um, yeah, again, I love the buddy cop aspect, the mystery aspect, and again, some pretty cool worlds that they're able to build in this world of Zootopia, and some really fun nods to some classic movies as well. That like that Godfather scene, I think
So good.
is so good. It's so fun. The sloth, who doesn't love a good sloth joke? I think that part's pretty hilarious, and yeah, I mean it's just a really really solid movie from Disney.
Yeah, man. I One of the things that I appreciate about 2010's Disney is the fact that, like, yes, every couple of years they would have one where they were coming back to something they know. And obviously, quite literally, because this was the first decade where they produced proper sequels to their films. Um, but I like that, like, 2010s into the 2020s, especially, I like that they've been getting experimental. And Zootopia definitely feels like an experiment from the Disney formula because it's not just like the world you're building being super different from anything we've seen before, but the fact that it's also a race allegory, and it's not just even a race allegory. This was my brother pointed it out when we rewatched it. It's also kind of a class allegory too.
Oh
Like
yeah,
there's so many elements that come into what they're talking about with this movie that make it so intriguing. And it really really works. It's really smartly written, and like that is what helps it. You're right. Bateman is excellent. He plays the character so well, and he plays all sides of it so well because it really is a truly complex character. There's different angles to this guy, and he plays it like this is where I think, because obviously I think we can all agree that like a voice actor professionally carries a different skill set than an actor. And I think that's why a lot of the times like stunt casting celebrity actors doesn't wholly work because it is a different skill set. This is one of the instances where I think having an actor like Bateman, someone with experience in dramatic work in this role really benefits the character because he's taking it seriously and he is doing a great job. Um I mean, obviously, she's not the star that Bateman is, but Jennifer Goodwin also can't be undersold as
no,
Judy Hopps. Like, she's excellent as well, and she's beat for beat with him the entire time. Um, yeah, man, like it's just for me, what took me back watching it because I saw this in theaters. I actually had the pleasure, and I feel like it's been long enough. I can say this. I had the pleasure of sneaking into an early screening of this film. Don't ask for the details, but I did get to see it a month early because I happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I remember really, really enjoying it back then. I hadn't seen it since. So it was one of those where it's like, I remember loving this, but I want to rewatch it for this to make sure. And yeah, man, I was just so taken aback by how smartly written it is and the fact that it is tackling such big themes for a Disney film and doing
yeah,
it successfully, which I really respected and really apprecited. Um, I like honestly the only reason that it's at 8 is just simply because I would say the 7 that are above it I found more love or enjoyment for. But in terms of appreciating the quality of the filmmaking, this is up there for me with Disney.
yeah.
And I'm so glad that after all these years, they're coming back to this world and doing something proper with it with a sequel because I think it's absolutely ripe for it.
Hmm. I agree 100%.
All right. So then from there, I'll go ahead and jump into my 11 through 8. So we were talking about this beforehand. I was obviously I have so many honorable mentions, but I was between two for my number 11. Uh, and I settled on, you know what? I settled on going for history. And so my number 11 is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Um, Obviously, like you can write it off. It's the original. None of this exists without this movie. It's a technical marvel. It's an achievement for its time. It's still an enjoyable movie, I think, to this day. Like it's genuinely still an enjoyable movie. And when I rewatched it for this, something that kind of took me by surprise. And obviously, like if you read the outline of the story, like you get this how dark this movie is. Like truly, not just in its plot, but its sense of humor, like the dialogue they give the evil queen and the things that it's laughing at and like her like if she's going to play the old woman like skipping gleefully through like her dungeons and you see the skeletons and like this thing has a wicked sense of humor that I really enjoyed. There was something sick and twisted going on when they made this, and I really enjoyed it. Um, and of course, it is a technical marvel. Like as someone who, and I'm sure you're the same, right? As someone who sees animation as more than just like movies for kids and appreciates how much work goes into making these movies, the fact that they pulled this off in 1937 and it's
Right.
about as good as movies they were making 30 years later is an achievement. Like, it looks so good even for the time. Why is it at 11? Snow White's not a character. The Prince isn't a character. I mean, listen, man, you can hate Rachel Zegler for the way she delivered her comments, but she wasn't totally off base. Uh,
Yeah.
this movie's not a modern story, and it shows. But I think it's a really great foundation for both something that could be turned into an incredible story. And seriously, guys, like, you have a great director in Mark. Is it Mark Webb that made it? I think it is. I don't know who
Maybe.
made the remake offhand. I think it's Mark Webb, but you have a great director. You have a great screenwriter in Greta Gerwig who wrote it. If people don't know that, Greta Gerwig wrote this remake. And you have a great foundation of a film here. Please don't fuck this up.
Please.
Please don't fuck this up. But also, I mean, it laid the foundation for the studio, and the fact that there are so many films that can contend with it, and it's still up there after all these years, I have to respect it.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. Any thoughts?
Yeah, this was one of my six that I was considering for that number 11 spot before ultimately going with Tarzan, because I do think, yeah, it's an important movie, not only for Disney, but I think for animation in general.
Yeah.
Who knows what animation would look like if this movie didn't succeed? And it did. It doesn't, for me, have that rewatchability, I think, which is something I look at quite a bit when ranking movies. But I think, yeah, just for the, historical aspect alone, like, I think you have to include it in some aspect. That's why I still have it, top 15. Because
Yeah.
I do, yeah, it's so important. And I also, I mean, while I say it's not totally rewatchable, I do think just that scene in the middle of the movie where they're just playing music in the
Oh, the
dwarves
party. Yeah.
house, the party. I think that's fun. Like, if I
It
don't
is.
know, it's the
It
kind of
is.
a party that I might want to be at. I mean, I don't know about being at a party with one woman and seven little men, but it seems fun. So, and
I
it's, I
would.
think it's got a couple catchy songs as well. So,
Yeah. I mean, listen, I was humming Hi Ho well after, like, that is it's such a catchy
it's
tune.
so
Like,
good. Yeah.
Yeah, hey man, if you go to that party, you're guaranteed to be the tallest person in the room. So always, always. All right, so we'll move on. Number 10 is a film that I feel like is gonna get a punt. The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, fair enough. Tough list, man. All right, so that's my number 10. My number 9 then is Fantasia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm assuming not on your list.
Not on my list. If I kept going after the 16, it probably would have been in that 17 to 20 if I kept going.
Yeah.
Because I do enjoy it, but go ahead.
Yeah. This movie, to me, this is the one movie that makes it on this list, not because of necessarily like sheer enjoyment, which I've learned through doing this show. One of the things I've learned is rewatchability is a huge factor for apparently most people that aren't me. Because I think you're the fourth person to say that. I'm pretty sure
Oh,
on
wow.
the episodes I did with Beer, Amaru, and certainly Austin last week, all were like, yeah, rewatchability is a big part of like where the movie actually falls on the list. And I've realized like I don't like that's a really like I just don't naturally always think that way. But you're right, it is such a big part of film. Is like, do I want to watch this again?
Right.
Um,
There's
if,
some exceptions, but
yeah,
for
of
the most
course.
part.
I never want to watch 12 Years a Slave again in my life. That said, I can't deny how great it is.
Yeah. That's Schindler's List for me. Like, it's a top 20 movie for me, but I'm not
Absolutely, yeah.
gonna go like, hey, let's go watch Schindler's List, guys.
I don't feel like putting on a Spielberg film at a party and go Schindler's List. Everybody, how we feeling? Yeah. The only time I might put Schindler's List on if somebody responds with like Amistad, and it's like, well, at that point, Schindler's List is the better film.
Yeah.
No. So Fantasia to me is just it's a pure work of art. It was literally a trendsetter for the studio because a lot of people who don't know Disney may not realize that during like World War II and the aftermath of World War II, they spent years trying to recapture Fantasia because it was the cheapest way to make movies. It's just to package shorts together and put it out.
Mhm.
Like this became a template for a long time for the studio. And it's far and away the best of them. And I did watch a couple. By the way, I also watched Ichabod and Mr. Toad. And I picked Melody Time randomly because like I remember watching shorts from that film, so I watched that one too. Which, by the way,
Mm.
the Johnny Appleseed short from that film. If you want to watch a nice short film, go look that
Yeah,
up.
that one.
That's
And
a great
then
short film.
I like half of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. I don't like Mr. Toad, but I think Ichabod is really good.
Oh, dude, I was the other way. The Ichabod one kind of had me bored, but I was having fun with Mr. Toad.
I mean, I can see it. It's just I don't know.
That's so funny. But yeah, Melody Time, that's got some fun short. The Bumble Boogie thing, just the
Oh,
bumblebee bouncing on the notes. Like, but yeah, man, like Fantasia is just a sheer work of art. It's a bunch of great classical pieces. And obviously, most people are familiar with two from this movie. They're familiar with The Sorcerer's Apprentice because it's like classic Disney.
mhm.
Um, and they're also familiar with Night on Bald Mountain slash the Ave Maria sequence that follows it. Um, but like every element of this film, I feel like maybe the one exception being the dinosaur one, just because I think it goes on a little too long.
Mhm.
But every element of this film is like a work of art. Like you are watching a painting happen right in front of you with this beautiful, curated, orchestrated music behind it. Um, I also think Disney did a great thing by restoring the introductions as much as they could because for a long time this movie existed without the introductions to each segment because they lost the footage or whatever,
Mhm.
shit with RKO Pictures and them having the footage and trying to restore it. But I like that they were able to restore it to some extent because I think it's really cool to like, it's almost like having someone set up a bit and then you watch it execute, and that's very much what this is. It's like somebody setting up the emotion and the mood you're supposed to be in, and then you just get to watch this beautiful piece. And then of course there is the two that everybody knows from this film. I mean, The Sorcerer's Apprentice is just so much fun. It is like a classic Mickey sketch to a T, and it works perfectly, and the music's great. And I mean, there's a reason that bit was like turned into a Disney ride, right? Because that's what Filler Magic is sort of based on. Like, there's a reason it's a whole thing.
Mhm.
Um, and then Night on Bald Mountain is, I mean, Disney did the devil, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to like sit here and like psychoanalyze it too much. But I think if you're an animation, like if you're a fan of animation as an art, I think Fantasia is something you should give a chance to at least once because it is purely, it's so pure. It's all short films. There's no continuing story. It's not even like the shorts that would come later, like Ichabod and Mr. Toad, is two short films, but there's a story to each of them.
Right.
There's not much of a story to these. You are just kind of watching a brief art piece, essentially, but it is just so masterfully made and it's so enjoyable to watch. And, again, like you're more in awe of it than I would say necessarily enjoying it, but it is just that good
Yeah.
that I
No.
put it on here. Like it is. And I've watched this movie more than you would think because every couple of years I'll put it on and then uh I've like covered like and it's weird how much this movie still persists, by the way, because like I've covered I obviously I work as a substitute. I've covered like music classes before, and they'll like pull segments from Fantasia. Like if it's like an orchestra thing, they'll pull segments from Fantasia and be like, play this, and then have them write something about it. And it's like connected to whatever they're doing. And it's like, it's awesome that this movie just still exists and is being used and being shown to people. And I think that's awesome that like these old films can still exist in some way. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Check it out if you haven't. It's on
Oh
Disney
yeah.
Plus. It's as restored as you're going to get it. So
Yeah, I agree. And as long as they're using this Fantasia and not Fantasia 2000.
what do you mean, man? You don't want Steve Martin and Whoopi Goldberg with your orchestra?
No, I think which sucks because I think that's the only thing bringing it down is all this celebrity involvement
Celebrity
and
nonsense.
what works for this one is that the pieces would get introduced and then they play the piece to the animation and it works. And I'm pretty sure this is probably the longest Disney movie still because I'm pretty sure it's close to 2 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, And you don't feel the length either. And even if you do, like you can pick and choose which shorts you want to watch and watch them. Um, and yeah, like the two you mentioned are great. But yeah, again, like much like the Jungle Book for me, like this is one that if you can put it on and you're if you get distracted for a couple moments, like it's okay because like it's not a narrative story. But yeah, you're right. It is really good, and I would recommend it. I'm pretty sure had I been able to rewatch it this week at some point, it might have climbed up into the contending for that 11th spot because
Mm,
it's been a while since I've seen it, but I do remember there were several enjoyable pieces here.
it is. So I looked it up. So Fantasia is the longest Disney animated film still at 2 hours and 6 minutes. Uh, if you count it, the Lion King remake is second. That is an hour and 58 minutes. And
I
then if
mean,
you
it
want to go with
was
an actual, if you want to go to an actual, no, number three is not even a proper animated film ever. They've listed number three as Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Okay. Okay. So if you remove the technicals, Fantasia is the longest at 2 hours and 6 minutes. The next closest is Ralph Breaks the Internet. That is an hour and 52 minutes.
hmm, okay,
So yeah, so it's the longest by a good bit.
yeah. So
Yeah, no, and it is by all definitions a masterpiece. But at nine, because let's be real, aside from viewing it every couple of years because I appreciate it, how often am I going back to this?
right.
So fair enough. All right, and then of course my eight was Zootopia, which means Jacob will transfer back over to you, sir. What is your number seven?
My number 7 is going to be Tangled.
Okay. That is another one of those honorable mentions for me. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I just people were talking Frozen. There was this big Frozen craze, and I'm like, did you guys forget that Tangled exists?
You.
Um, you have the strong female protagonist here. Um, you have another fun. You actually got a couple of fun sort of animal sidekicks here because you got Pascal, but then you've also got the horse, who I think deserves more love. That horse is fantastic.
So much personality.
Yeah, give me some shorts with him, and I am in all the way. Um, you got a fun. I don't know if he's a sidekick. I don't know what you would classify him. The love interest, Flynn Rider or
Mm.
Eugene, voiced excellently by Zachary Levi. Rapunzel by Mandy Moore, who's also got a fantastic singing voice. And forgive me once again for not remembering who voices Mother Gothel, but I think she is
Donna
incredible.
Murphy.
Donna Murphy, that's right. I think again, I think she has an incredible villain song. I think Mother Knows Best is just a lot of fun. Um, and again, maybe I just really like Disney adventure movies because they're going on another adventure because she wants to see the lanterns. She's never seen the lanterns, and you know, Flynn Rider is kind of this thief who kind of needs to lay low, kind of just needs to get uh, you know some out of the sight of some people that really don't like him. And so I love the romance that sparks between them. I think it's got some really fun songs. The dream song, I've got a dream. I think that sequence
Yeah.
is a lot of fun. When you first get into that bar, and then all of a sudden, oh, we've got all these tough guys singing about dreams about being a concert pianist or whatever. I think it's a lot of fun. And then I think the lantern scene is, I think, one of the most beautifully animated Disney
Is it
sequences that
I
we've
See the
gotten.
Light, right?
The I See the Light, yeah, that's which beautiful song, by the way,
Yes.
wonderful duet. And again, you have great voice acting here again. Yeah, sure. Some of these classic Disney movies where they had like the same voice actors for several roles in several movies, but I think you know people like Mandy Moore and Zachary Levi, like um, I think they make it work because they've also got the scene, and they do it really well. Um, And then yeah, I love this movie. I think yeah, I'm Tangled over Frozen, because Tangled. I think the narrative here is really good. And then like the sacrifice that she makes with her hair, I think, um, just a perfect ending. And yeah, a great villain. I'm a sucker for a good villain song. So anytime you have a good villain song,
Yeah.
um, it's gonna earn points for me. And yeah, Mother Knows Best, like I said, probably one of my favorite Disney villain songs. So I think this movie just has it all. And why is it number seven? It's probably just because of the seven that I have here. I think it's just the one that I've seen the least, which and I've
Mm.
still seen it a good number of times.
Yeah, yeah. Tangled was another one of those that made the eight honorable mentions there. It is so. This is a weird thing, right? So a lot of Disney movies are musicals, but I don't necessarily love a lot of these movies as musicals, if that makes sense. Like, I think they're just good movies that also happen to be musicals. I don't think the musical element of them is always the strongest. It's like there's some weird disconnect in a lot of them where it's like, great movie with great songs, but as a musical, I don't know if the music always does the best job at like progressing the story the way that like a musical generally does. It feels like you kind of stop the movie for the singing. Um, Tangled for the longest time to me was truly the best musical they had made. I think it does the best at not only having great songs, because all of them are very catchy and memorable, but the way they're incorporated into the story and flesh the characters and expand the world. Like each song does serve a clear purpose. There's no just we're going to stop and sing for entertainment. Each one does serve a purpose. There is one more that I think did it better that's coming up on my list, but Tangled, it's still second. I think it's a great musical first and foremost. But you're right, man. Like this is basically the prototype for Frozen, and I think the fact that this movie exists kind of teed people up for Frozen. Like I think unfortunately this is underserved because it was the first movie that came out after a pretty tumultuous period for Disney, and I think people seeing this and enjoying it like made them jump headfirst into Frozen. It is infinitely better than Frozen. 100%. It's not even a competition, man. This is so much better. And I will say, like you talked about singing, Zach Levi and Manny Moore. I don't think they're better singers than anyone in that Frozen cast, but the songs are written to suit them, and their
Mm.
emotion within their voices serves the songs so well. Like you said, "I See the Light." That is such a great duet, and the emotion within their voices, you genuinely believe that they are feeling all of these emotions for the first time, and like it
Yeah.
leads to this honestly being probably one of the more believable romances in a Disney film. Like Frozen's had two movies, and I don't believe that romance nearly as much as I believe the romance in this. As much as I love Lost in the Woods, that's a great power ballad, but
Love that song.
I unironically I love that song, but uh like I believe the romance more entangled. There's just something about their chemistry and the performances. It just sells it so much more than I think anything in Frozen did. And obviously Frozen is its most direct competitor, but it's better than a lot of the movies. Obviously, it's like the first, and to be fair, Princess and the Frog is a very good movie. I don't know if it's on your list, so I'm just gonna say that it's a very good. Okay, yeah, it's a very good movie.
That's good. Yeah.
Was never in contention for me personally, but still a good movie. But generally, Tangled was like the first brilliant film after a string of just films that weren't doing it, and I think that's why it's kind of underserved.
Mm.
But it is a great film.
Yeah.
All right, what's your six? Right, six, yeah.
Yep. Yep. Number six. My number six is The Little Mermaid.
Okay, so that's the pun from earlier. Okay,
Yeah.
jump into it, man.
Yeah, and then this is just I think this is another movie that while it's also just a really great movie, I think it deserves the respect. Um, because it's sort of the movie that saved Disney. It kicked off the Renaissance after the 80s, which I don't think there were a lot of bad movies in the 80s. There's a couple that were like maybe not, like Oliver and Company, maybe not.
Fuck you, I love that movie. No,
But they just weren't I think they just weren't doing it financially
no.
for Disney. And then Little Mermaid comes along and saves it. And I think people can. I can't relate to the character of Ariel, but I guess I've heard people say they can. But I think it's a beautifully animated movie, with a really great story. Um, Another great villain in Ursula, who's Pat Carroll
Yeah.
delivers Poor Unfortunate Souls so well. Um,
Melissa
man,
McCarthy doesn't hold a candle. I'm
no,
sorry, but
and I'm one who I didn't hate Melissa McCarthy's
no, but
performance,
not
but
even
when you're
close.
comparing the two, it's like there's like you can't see the gaps because of how big the screen is, but it's there.
You're just gonna look right
Because
at Pat Carroll. You're not
yeah, because
even gonna.
Pat Carroll is just that
Yeah, no.
good. And just her voice in that song and just kind of that raspiness or whatever, and just the tone that she has, it's just it's kind of haunting actually. And oh my goodness, if we did a countdown of Disney villain songs, which is a very specific topic,
But
um,
there's enough. You probably get
yeah,
there.
that's probably top three for me, because
Yeah.
it's so good. Um, but there's also some fun aspects to this. There's some good humor. I think again, killer soundtrack here,
Mm.
with just several really catchy songs. Under the Sea, Kiss the Girl, Part of Your World is a beautiful song, um, which might be one that I think is almost on par in the remake, just because of Halle Bailey's
Oh, her vocals
voice.
are. Yeah.
Her vocals are just amazing. But
She's probably a better singer than Jodie Benson is. But
yeah, you're not gonna get an argument from me. I think she's got a great voice. Yeah. Um, but yeah, it's also
and
beautifully
for the record,
animated.
since we keep referencing the remakes, I did not hate that remake. I thought it was
No,
fine.
I didn't either. I
But
thought it
yeah,
was fine, but
comparatively, it's one of the better ones. But yeah, it's
yeah.
fine.
But I also, when looking at a remake, it's like if you have to add nearly an hour to the runtime, um, uh, it's I mean I don't know, 'cause I feel like they tell such a complete story here, and then in the remake you're adding an hour, and I do feel like some of the songs in the remake were unnecessary, like whatever Aquafina was rapping. I feel like if you could have probably cut that out. That's
Oh,
probably the one
see,
thing.
I
I
think I'm
mean,
the
like,
I think I'm the only person on the face of the earth who wasn't like immediately horrified at that song, and that's only just because there was a small part of me that went, Lin Manuel wrote the songs for this. It's gonna be in there fucking somewhere. It's gonna be there somewhere.
that's
Like
true. That's true. If Lin
I was
Manuel
waiting
Miranda
for
is
it.
one of your songwriters, there will be an aspect of rap.
Yeah, it
Um,
will be there. And again, Aquafina and David being there, one of his guys, like how could it just too
right.
tempting to not do it?
Yeah, no, I love David Diggs. He's
He
great.
was a good Sebastian. Like
Yeah. But as far as the original here,
better Sebastian than the
yeah,
original.
I think, yeah, and yeah, I mean, it saved Disney, and I think it deserves that respect. It just it's not one of those Disney Renaissance movies I go back to quite as often, but
Yeah.
it's one that I also respect. Which probably, I mean, if you asked me which one I would rather watch right now, Tangled or The Little Mermaid, I'd probably say Tangled.
That's fair.
But because of like the respect and what it did for Disney, and it's
Yeah.
still one that I've seen several times. I had to put it up just a little bit higher for that.
Yeah, this movie, I ran the fact check once for a debate question on movie Battleground, and it's like this movie made so much money that almost single-handedly it's say like if you were just going off of movie expenditure and then gross at the box office, almost single-handedly this saved the 80s for them.
Mm.
Um, and I do think the 80s gets a bad rap because it's like it was the decade of financial failure for Disney. But I think in actuality, The Black Cauldron's not a good movie, but the rest of them being The Fox and the Hound, The Great Mouse Detective, Oliver and Company, and this obviously being excellent. Like it wasn't a horrible decade. They just couldn't make money to save their
Right.
life. Which I yeah, it's like the year 2023. Not everything in it was horrible. They just couldn't make money. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shitty place to be in, isn't it? Yeah, man. The Little Mermaid. Again, it's only at my 10 because, as like, even as a kid growing up, this was just it wasn't one that I gravitated to. But it is such an excellently made film. Even though I see merit in the remake, and I do like some of the additions they made, specifically the expansions to the Prince. I think were all really solid, and I think they do flesh his character out necessary,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
needed. It was needed. But I went back and watched this movie shortly afterwards, and it's like, yeah, this is just it's still so good. It's better. Um, the underwater world is so vibrant. It's so full of life, quite literally, but it's so full of life and fun. And Under the Sea is a great number. Kiss the Girl's a great number. Um, Questionable Consent, sure, but hell, he's singing, so who cares? Uh, when one half of your couple can't speak, consent is questionable anyways. So just kiss her.
Disney didn't care about that at some point. Look at Snow White.
Yeah, and obviously I will go into it more later because a couple of their films are on my list. But obviously, the average person does not know very much about Disney directors, like who actually animates, like who actually is leading the team making the movies.
Mm.
I will contend, and I'll make this point a couple times over this list. Uh, John Clements and Ron Musker, or no, it's the other way around. Ron Clements and John Musker, I believe, is it.
Yeah.
They are probably overall the best duo to ever direct for Disney. Like if you just look at their Great Mouse Detective, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, Treasure Planet, Princess and the Frog, Moana. I think as a collective filmography, that is probably the most consistent and best run you're going to get from any filmmaker at that studio. Um, so I always like when I talk to people, it's like, listen, if you're going to push any filmmaker into their minds, know these two guys' names because they probably put together a series of films that you love in any combination or any order. Uh, so yeah, and this is one of them. It's excellent. So what's your number 5? We'll move on then.
My number 5 is The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah, that was one of the ones fighting for 11, man. Go ahead.
Mm. Yeah, and this is one that's just recently cracked the top 5. Austin and I did an episode on the Disney Renaissance, and this is one that I hadn't watched in a while, and I rewatched it, and I don't know what it was about that rewatch, but there was just something I was like, oh my goodness, this movie is fantastic. I love the dark tones here. It's probably Disney's darkest movie.
For sure.
And in the 90s, this got a G rating. If this movie came out today, it would definitely get a PG. I mean, if Frozen is PG, and some of these other Disney movies that have come out recently are PG, this one's definitely going to be getting that PG rating. So, the 90s were a different time. But
I honestly, given the culture of modern times, I fail to see how this movie gets released with its attacks on the Catholic Church. But
oh, right.
that withstanding, but again, I'm so glad it exists because it's excellent.
Yeah, and I love the voice work. I love the world that they're able to build here in Notre Dame. The bell tower is, with Quasimodo and the gargoyles, and I don't get the criticism with the gargoyles when people say they're unnecessary. I'm like, if you did not have the comic relief in this movie, I don't think this movie is as rewatchable as it actually is. If there's no gargoyles, I think then it's just dark all the way through. And I think Quasimodo needs the gargoyles. He needs those people that he can talk to because otherwise he doesn't have anyone. Um, Otherwise he's just talking to himself, which maybe it looks like it is to other people. He's just talking to himself. I mean, I think Judge Frollo probably thinks he's talking to himself because I don't think he knows the gargoyles exist or have life. So and that's another thing. I think Judge Frollo is. I think he's like a top tier Disney villain. I think Tony Jay gives an incredible voice performance. I was on Dylan Randazzo's channel. He does drafts every once in a while, and we were doing Disney voice acting drafts, and he was my Renaissance pick, like hands down. It was him, and I believe I had somebody from The Lion King on my list too. But when it was
Also makes sense, yeah.
because we were told 2 picks from the Renaissance, and so it was like there was no doubt that I was getting Tony J because he delivers his lines with just such I don't like the guy, and he makes you hate him, and his song is so creepy, and the way his song like transitions in from Quasimodo's oh, what is it, Heaven's Light, and then we get into Hellfire. Like
Yeah.
I love that transition, because it's just, we go from like this just so uplifting song, and then we're getting
Hellfire to me is like how people kind of call out like the first 10, 11 minutes of Up as like that singularly might be one of the best things Pixar's ever done. Whatever your opinion on the rest of the film is, that beginning is one of the best things they've ever done. Hellfire as a sequence might be one of the best things Disney Animation's ever done. Like in just in the middle of this movie, the amount of creativity, the fearlessness in taking a risk like this to put it in the movie in the first place. I mean, listen, man, those images aren't hiding anything. You know exactly what this song's about, and
right.
I respect the fuck out of them for it.
Yeah, they made some choices in this movie that are like, oh my goodness, and this is a kids movie. Like he's setting houses on fire. He's
Yeah,
you know, again that song talking about, you know what he's talking about.
yeah.
And yeah,
Gypsy dancing in the flame. It's not that subtle.
it's dark, and I appreciate the fact that our main character, who obviously has these feelings for Esmeralda, he doesn't get the girl,
No,
and sometimes that's how it is, and I appreciated that they made that choice.
that's why I
You
hate
know,
the sequel so much.
yeah, I let's not talk about that sequel.
Sorry, I
Um,
brought up Shamika.
it's it's not good. I watched it once, and once is
I had
enough.
it on DVD,
I mean, I think it's part of the
like a
Blu-ray
collection.
that I have. I think it's just a two Blu-ray set, but it's one that I will not put in. Just this one will be put in. But yeah, Esmeralda, like the two that should end up together, ended up together. But Quasimodo's still happy, and
Yeah,
again, the, the villain falls to his death in another Disney Renaissance movie.
yeah.
Um, and this one
For
will
for all
deserve.
you wannabe alphas that think you can't be friends with women, watch this movie.
Right. Right.
Satisfy. You can be satisfied with friendship. I promise you. Um, no, man. This is it, it's such a close cut for me. Because I agree with everything you said. What I will say is, I it is the gargoyles that hold it back for me. I understand their purpose. I understand why they're there. To me, it is more so it's just the specific type of humor doesn't really
Mm,
connect with me. I think if maybe you had, because it feels like they're trying to go a little bit like they're trying to go a little bit for Robin Williams ish, like referential kind of that like hyper stylized humor. I think maybe something a little more subtle, maybe a little more dry would have worked better for me.
that's fair.
Because you're right, the movie does need some type of levity because it is so heavy aside from that. It's just the type of humor, and like I'm not the biggest fan of Jason Alexander outside of Seinfeld.
Mm,
And like so he doesn't really work for me. And so yeah, but I understand why it's needed. I don't bemoan the film for it. It's still really good. And again, it's a movie I respect Disney for just for the fact that it exists.
yeah.
Like you have to. But yeah. Any thoughts or number four?
No, no, yeah. Number four is Moana.
That's my number five.
All right, nice.
So go
Um,
ahead, jump in. Listen, man. I said it a minute ago. Clements and Musker are the best directors in the studio of all time. Moana's up there, man. Jump into it.
yeah, and it makes sense to have them come back and direct the water movie after they directed the Little
I've never
Mermaid.
even thought of it that way. What the
Uh,
fuck?
and yeah, no, and it works. Again, this I think it's first off, I just think it's a beautifully just gorgeous animated movie. Um, and
Yes.
I think again another strong female protagonist here in Moana. Like, going on this adventure. Again, I guess I just love adventure movies when it comes to Disney.
Hey, man, they
Because
do a
there's
hell
another
of a
one
job.
here. Yeah. Um, the voice cast again is great. Um, say what you want about Dwayne Johnson as Maui, because he's pretty much just being himself. I think with his voice, he's not really doing anything out of the ordinary, which I think you can say the same for some others, but I think they bring some flair to it. But I think The
He
Rock is just being The Rock.
Yeah, it's a lot to me. It's not the same. Now, to be fair, I don't think it's better or anywhere near as good as what I'm about to compare it to, but it is a lot like Robin Williams with the genie, where sometimes it is just a person's personality works for the role and it provides the right type of levity.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. I do love his song though. I think "You're Welcome" is a lot of fun, and who knew The Rock could rap. I knew he could somewhat sing because if you're a wrestling fan, he did do a couple like concerts on Monday Night Raw before. So
Oh, does he? Does he really get up there and go for it?
he he doesn't really go up there. It's basically just him and the guitar. Um,
A
but
guitar? I would not have thought that.
yeah, he doesn't like play the guitar, like he strums. So he's not really like playing
There we
it,
go.
but I think he knows like four notes or something, and he just plays those over and over again. Um,
Fair enough.
no, I love the relationship between Moana and her grandmother. I think that
Yeah.
is just one of the best Disney relationships there. Um, Again, a killer soundtrack, and again, when you think about who wrote the songs, it makes sense that he's got Dwayne Johnson rapping.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
just yeah, it kicks off so cool. I think that some of that opening song, I think it's "Where You Are." I
Yes,
think
yeah,
it
on
is
the
great, and
island.
just kind of introduces us to the island, and then when we learn why they're on that island and why they're there, I think it's really cool. I think
And can I just say, Lin-Manuel Miranda, I noticed this after watching Wish. Lin-Manuel Miranda set a new Disney trend with that song because I feel like every musical that's come out since opens with group song introducing the setting because Frozen 2 had one, Moana had one, and Wish also has one. Like it's like the
yeah,
new thing now where all of
right.
these movies open with this song and none of them are better than this. But
No, I mean, I don't know. I think Encanto
comes
is
close.
close, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's quite there. But I think it comes close. I think yeah, the Family Madrigal is really good, but Encanto was another tough cut. I really enjoyed that one. Um, but yeah, Lin Manuel Miranda songwriting here is so good. Several catchy songs.
Shiny.
Shiny, yeah, yeah, and this was another one when so we had to do a modern pick in that draft too, and I chose a villain, uh,
Jermaine.
and I chose Jermaine Clement from this movie
He's
because,
so good.
and while he doesn't have a lot, I think he is absolutely memorable, and I think Shiny is one of the best songs that Disney has produced in the last decade.
Dude,
For me
he's in
anyway.
this movie for all of 10 minutes and he makes it his fucking movie when he's there. He
Oh
is
yeah,
so good.
yeah. If if there was like an animated Oscars and they did like a best supporting, like give Jermaine Clement his due
Yeah.
for his 10 minutes.
No,
He, he,
he
he delivers.
absolutely. Yeah, man, he just takes control. He's so like I want this guy's movie. Like
Yeah. How did
dude,
he become so shiny? How
I
did he
I
get all
saw
these things?
I saw this movie twice in theaters because the first time I saw it, I had to use the restroom and it almost timed perfectly where I missed this entire segment. Like I basically missed it the first time around entirely.
No.
And then the end credit scene is him where he's still flipped over on his back. And I was like, wait a minute, what was that? And they were like, oh, that's what you missed. And I was like, fuck. So I went back and saw it a second time. So I was like, what did I miss? Like,
Yeah.
and it's so good. Um, yeah, man, this movie. So I've always liked this movie. And like when I first put together my original provisional list for this, it was like somewhere near the bottom. It was like 10 or 11. And I rewatched it for this because my brother and sister hadn't seen it since they saw it in theaters. So when I told them I was rewatching Disney movies, they're like, "Oh, let's watch this one." So I was like, "Okay, cool." And I like something about it just bursted it up the list, man. There's like a newfound appreciation for this movie. It technically it's so great. The animation's beautiful. The water animation is excellent. It's like a character of its own. Um, the that chicken is so stupid, but it's one of the funniest things in any of these movies. Also, again, another trend started by this film. Alan Tudyk just making random animal noises.
It is
in
so
movie.
good.
He has been like every animal ever since, just making all these random noises in movies, and it's so funny. He's weirdly good at it. Um, but hey works. And you're right, like I'm somebody very publicly, like if anybody's watched any of the videos on this channel where I've talked about like news and stuff, very publicly, I am falling out of love for Dwayne Johnson very fast. I think that man's ego has hit a new peak that I don't like. This movie still rewatching it, like, man, fuck, that is such a fun character, and he plays it so well. And it's like, you know what? While I don't love that he's doing it again in live action, I also kind of look at it and go, who the fuck do you even try and cast to like do this? Like, where do you, because I think they got very, very lucky with Will Smith doing the genie. Like, I think he's one of the few guys that could do something different but also enjoyable.
Right.
How do you do that again for this character? Because it's so The Rock that like, where do you go? Yeah, man, it's a hell of a movie.
Yeah, it's so good. 2016 was good for Disney.
It was a good year for Disney. Any more thoughts? Are you ready?
No, I'm good. Yeah, it's fantastic.
All right, so then we'll go ahead and jump into my 7 through 4, and we'll go ahead and start with if funny enough, you talk about great year for Disney, my next two both come from the same year, and it's a rather recent year. My number 7 is Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh, okay.
Dude, when I saw this movie the first time, my biggest criticism of it was, why the fuck wasn't this a show? This world is so well constructed and it's so interesting. And it's like, I want more of this. Like, it's such an interesting world with an interesting history, with these like 5 factions that are all split up and the way they're divided, and like the history with like the connection to the dragons and what was the dragon's role. And like, I want to know so much more about this world. And then it's the fact that like I think, again, talk about like Zootopia was more of like a racism story with like this added on bit of classism to it. This to me more so feels like a story about classism and the idea of like your perceived importance based on what you hold in your cultural history, and then people vying for it. And I love that it's a story about, and it's very timely coming out in 2021. It's a story about how basic mistrust in humans can destroy you. Um, and how so much of the movie is just about these various characters coming across each other's paths and like having to trust each other. Um, the other thing that I really enjoyed, and I didn't really realize it until I watched this movie, is it's very unique in Disney's line because it's a straight action film. Like, Disney has a lot of adventure movies, but they don't have very many action movies. Like, it's like this, Robin Hood, I guess, would count. And then aside from that, really, what is there that's an action film? And the action in this is so well animated. The sword fight at the end between Raya and I forget the girl, the main antagonist of the film, like their sword fight at the end is so fluid. It's so well animated. And again, when you take behind the scenes aspect and keep in mind that most of this movie was made at home on iPads, like the fact that they pulled this off to me is so incredible. The voice acting is excellent. When I rewatched it for this, I realized how crucial to this film Benedict Wong as like the big guy was, because he's one of the things I remembered most from this movie. And then I was like, oh yeah, he's not introduced until like basically the third act. But in that short amount of screen time, he's so memorable as this guy. And again, there's like my honestly, my biggest issue with this film still is the fact that it's just like, I would have loved if this would like were like similar to how Pixar is like making shows for Disney Plus, and they're working on
Mhm.
full proper shows for Disney Plus. I would have loved if Disney made this a show for Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see this expanded on. I want to see these characters get backstories fully. I want to see all of this, because just in the little bit that we have here, it is so well done. And I also think this is an example of, because there's been a lot of talk in the last few years about live action or animation directors stepping over into live action. Right, obviously a couple of big Pixar guys have done it. We've seen various animators over the years take that step. probably the biggest one most recently announced is Dean DeBlois, who did the How to Train Your Dragon films, is going to be doing those movies in live action. Like, it's been a trend. This is one of the few instances where a live action director stepped into animation, with Carlos Lopez Estrada of Blind Spotting directing this film. And even though he's obviously not Asian, he's Hispanic, I think having somebody who already has experience making a film that is so in tune into culture, because for the longest time, I was one of the people who had not seen Blind Spotting. For years, it was like Amaru in one ear, Henry in the other, of like, you have to see this movie, you have to see this movie. And I finally saw it, and it is fucking excellent. So but that movie tackles like the culture around Oakland and the fact that what race plays into it so well that you can feel him bring that into this. It's almost similar to John Chu doing In the Heights, where he had already done Crazy Rich Asians, a movie that focuses on his own race, that handles it so well that you can just bring that mindset into a different film with a different culture and also make a film that is just as respectable. I think he does that with this movie. And he makes a hell of an animated film. Like, I want to see that guy make another movie in general, but I wouldn't be upset if it was an animated one, because I think he did a great job.
Yeah. This is a movie I've seen it just the one time, but I do agree with what you're saying. Like, I think it would make an excellent series. I even think maybe you could still do like a prequel series or something exploring,
the time skip, here. Like what happens, and
you could easily do that. And yeah, I completely forgot about that sword fight until you brought it up, but yeah, maybe this is one that I go back and rewatch, because like I said, I just saw it the one time, but I did enjoy it. It's just I just haven't gone back to it recently.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, but I do agree with most of what you're saying.
Yeah, with Disney, it's such a hard thing putting these lists together, because it really is a case of like the stuff you grew up with versus the stuff that's recent but so good, and it's like trying to find the balance between the two. But yeah, this movie, it's so unique in their canon, and the fact that they pulled it off. And I mean, unfortunately, it was a box office failure by all accounts. So they're probably not going to continue it, but I would have loved to see more in some capacity.
Yeah.
So I said, 2016 was a hell of a year for Disney. Obviously, we both had Zootopia and Moana. And so I'm going to follow this up by saying my number 6 is Encanto. Thankfully, I did go see this movie in theaters, because I live in Florida, where nobody gave a fuck about COVID. So as long as you take care of yourself and be precautious yourself, you could live down here. So I got to go see this in a movie theater well before We Don't Talk About Bruno blew up on TikTok and everybody was watching it on Disney Plus. I got to go see the movie for the movie itself. And yeah, man, I really enjoyed it. And I guess Raya and the Last Dragon also weirdly, I guess, has this theme in it as well. And they also did it in Strange World. Like, for a couple years there, this was like the thing with Disney, is generational trauma. Frozen 2 also, I guess, kind of tackles that idea with the parents and stuff, but this easily does it the best. The idea that you have a grandmother who inadvertently becomes the antagonist of her family because she's so dedicated to, and this is a detail that I think goes missed. It's not just like her family having powers and her family needing to be perfect. It's the fact that her family's powers allow them to play such an important role in this community, that they're now dependent upon by this community. And like the fact that she strives to keep up that image and to keep up this perfect family, which has been passed down to the kids, and you see how they react to it, which is then passed down also to the grandkids, and you see how they're affected by it, and how the various different people treat Mirabelle for not having powers. And it's like, it's just so interesting, and it's so intricate for like an hour and a half movie, how deep they're able to really go into this and see how it affects every individual family member. As you said, Lynn, I know there's like a bit of a backlash against him. I think he's a great songwriter. I love the songs in this. The only one that doesn't work for me is Surface Pressure, and that's just because I don't think that song's written to complement her voice. Like, I don't think it's a bad song, and I don't think she's even a bad singer. I just don't think that song complements her voice, especially because she's like spending most of the movie doing this like deeper voice for the character. Like, it just doesn't work.
Right.
But that said, like songwriting wise, I think all the songs are great. Uh, like obviously we don't talk about Bruno's incredibly catchy, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the song that has a Spanish name because I always butcher it. But that's like a beautiful ballad at the end of the film during that flashback. Family Madrigal is a great introduction. Waiting on a Miracle is like probably the best like classic Disney I Want song in a number of years, probably since the last one that he wrote with How Far I'll Go.
Mm-hmm.
uh like it is, the music's great, the story's awesome. This is the movie that I think is actually the best musical from Disney, because I think every single song in this serves the story. It serves to advance the story. And it's because the story in this is the characters and it is their arc. It's so entrenched within the characters themselves that you can take every single song and dedicate it to a character, and it advances the story and it helps you get inside their head and it helps you understand this family a bit more. And so I think it pulls off being a musical better than any other Disney film does. Uh, and it's such a fun film. Like I think it's rewatchable, even for the emotional part of it. It's so rewatchable, and the voice acting again is really really solid in this. I think my biggest disappointment walking away from this the first time was Wilmer Valderrama does not sing once in this movie, and I don't even know if he can really sing, but I wanted to hear it. I mean, John Leguizamo even got up there and started rapping, and God knows he's not good at it, but he did it. So, but yeah. Although even that led to a laugh because I noticed on the last rewatch I did of this movie, if you pay attention during We Don't Talk About Bruno, even during the sequence at the end where all the characters are singing at once, Wilder Valderrama's character is in the scene, but his mouth is not moving because he's not actually singing any of the song. Like the character is there dancing with them, but he is not singing because Wilmer's not singing the song, which I thought was a funny detail.
I'll have to rewatch it. I never noticed that before. I'll have to rewatch it and watch for that.
But yeah, what are your thoughts? Because you said it was a close cut, right?
Yeah, it was. And for a family that doesn't talk about Bruno, they sure did talk about Bruno a lot.
They know how to sing about
it. It's funny that the biggest song from the movie is a complete lie. But before I hated what the Oscars did to that song, by the way.
Oh,
They just everyone was so excited for them to perform the song, and then we got like half the song and a rap.
It's like half the cast aren't even there, and then Megan Thee Stallion came out for some reason.
Yeah, I was like, oh, cool. Oh, not anymore.
Honestly, what's even worse than like the Megan Thee Stallion thing was the fact that they then go back to the actual song, but they just bring out Latin singers and have them do it. And it's like, what the fuck is the point of even having the cast here then? Like, why are we? It's not like they can't sing; they're all singers. So what's the point of this? Like, it
was so disappointing. But this movie is not. Yeah, no, I think everything you said I can agree with. It was just a tough cut because again, it's so recent for me, and as someone who's grown up with these movies, like all these other movies, I've just watched so much more, and I'm sure maybe as time goes on, Encanto, the more I rewatch it, will creep up there because, like you said, every song is good and every song serves a purpose. They're not just there as filler or as entertainment. I mean, they are entertaining, but they're also serving a purpose, and I think. Yeah, it's such a cool story about family here, and great voice cast, great voice acting. So I respect the pick.
Disney has so many great movies that I think I could legitimately in the future do like a next best 11 films, and you could pull another 11 films each that are just as good as the ones that were in the top 11.
Oh, for sure.
Which is great because they have a lot of films, so you can come back.
Of them.
Is it 62 now? Jesus.
62 now with Wish.
Wow. All right, so then we'll move on. Any more about Encanto or no?
Nah, I think you said it all.
Then, my number 5 was Moana, which means we'll go to my number 4, which is Pinocchio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Another tough cut.
Of all the classic, Okay, there's one more, but I don't know where it would fall in terms of what we're defining as classic. But of all the old generation classic films, a lot of which I do enjoy, Pinocchio to me is easily the best. I because we keep talking about the remakes, I fucking hated that remake so much with a passion. I hated it. Robert Zemeckis, just retire. Stop hurting your legacy, please. But uh, the Guillermo one was solid though.
Love that movie.
That was great. That was a really good movie. I was pulling for Puss in Boots that year, but I respect the hell out of Guillermo's film. So, but yeah, Pinocchio. It's like it is literally like a tale as old as time. And it's such a just a good it's just a good kind of basic adaptation of the story, but I think it hits all the beats it needs to hit. Um, I think that Pinocchio comes off as such a believable character. He is genuinely a kid that is just exploring the world. And it's like all of the mistakes that he makes are mistakes that I think any average kid would make. He just gets way more harshly punished. And it makes the story that much more engrossing. I think it sucks you in and it makes it that much more enjoyable. It's a harder one to talk about because it is older. It's a bit shorter. I mean, obviously, I've Got No Strings has become like a staple of Disney. James Spader even did a cover of it once. Yeah, it's just I don't know of the older films. This is the one that sucked me in the most because I did go back and watch a lot of those. This is the one that sucked me in the most. It kept me the most entertained. I think the relationship between him and Geppetto is so pure and genuine. You really do buy into it. And yeah, fuck that remake. Any other thoughts?
No, I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, this was a tough cut. I think of the classics, I think this would be the one that I rank the highest.
Yeah.
Depending on where you have that cutoff for classics. I guess I have The Jungle Book, which is considered a classic. Could be considered a classic. It's 67. So,
yeah. Where do we pull the cutoff now for
yeah.
that? Like,
I mean, I guess anything after 70s. I guess I don't know.
we're starting to push a point where the Renaissance films are going to be old enough that they're classics.
It's true.
It really is.
But yeah, I mean, then When You Wish Upon a Star, which is like Disney's song now. That came from this movie. I agree with what you said about Geppetto and Pinocchio's relationship. Just so pure and genuine. And Pleasure Island, that whole scene is terrifying.
Oh my god,
the kids turning into donkeys. I think Jiminy Cricket is a great character. And I think it's also got a great message about, and so yeah, great pick. Like I said, tough cut. It was in that next five. If we were doing a top 16, I would definitely
it'd be
have
in there.
included
Yeah.
it. So.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so we are in the top 3 now. So go ahead and give me your number 3.
My number 3 is Aladdin.
That is a punt.
All right.
All right, so then we'll go ahead and move over to my number 3, which is Beauty and the Beast.
That's my number 2. So I would.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go ahead and jump into it because your 2 would be next, anyways.
Yeah.
All right, Beauty and the Beast. It's higher for you, so why don't you go ahead and get started on it?
Yeah. For the longest time, like it was tough to rank these 3, and finally I had to do it and just stick to it. Because I love this movie. I think this is a beautiful story of not looking at the outward appearance, but looking at the somebody from on the inside and who they are as a person, which is not true of just the Beast, but I think all these other characters who are these objects like Mrs. Potts, Lumiere, Cogsworth, and then whoever else is not a person but is actually a person. The wardrobe,
the cabinet, and who's the one that Lumiere's like flirting with? Is it like the feather duster?
Yeah, the feather duster. It's always been a thing. because I had to argue against this movie in my very first Battleground match
I
against
remember that.
Austin.
Yes.
And it was so tough. Like I was grasping at anything I could. I was like, yeah, but Beauty and the Beast has this very pervy candlestick, and it just totally takes you out
He's
of the
not
movie.
pervy, he's just French. It's
I'm
what
like,
sorry, sorry.
and it's like, and it's like, yeah, but is it really? I'm like, no, it's kind of works for the character, I guess. Um, so it's one of those movies where it's hard to find any flaws
That's
with
great.
it.
That's Jerry Orbach, I believe. It's a great voice performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think yeah, this is some really good voice work here. And I'm one of those also when it comes to Gaston, where I don't necessarily consider him a villain. I just think he's a douche. I just think he's like not a very nice person. I didn't peg him as a villain. I found him as like, well, I know what I want and I'm going to go get it, and I don't care what other people think. Like, yeah, well, you're just kind of a douche. Um, so I can get why people would call him the villain, especially towards the end of the later half of the movie. He definitely starts acting villainous, but for the first half of the movie, I'm like, oh yeah, he's just kind of a jerk, just kind of this pretty boy who's into himself, and I've got big muscles, so I'm gonna get what I want. um, but I think they do something different with him in the remake, which I think makes him a villain all the way through. But that's a discussion for another time. I think the character of Belle is. I think she's a great character.
Yeah.
Um, I think this movie has the best opening to any movie. With the song. I mean, after that initial, you know, where we see the beast
Where
get
the beast gets
transformed.
turned. It's
I think
oh god, what's the name of it? Is it just Belle? Is that what the song's called?
yeah, the song is just called Belle. Like
Oh
that
yeah.
whole sequence,
Yeah.
introducing Belle, introducing the town again. Um, I think yeah, I would put this up there with some of those openings like we were talking about
Like
with Encanto
yeah, of course.
and
In general, this soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks I think a Disney animated film has ever had.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
It
Um,
like no joke, this soundtrack is so good. I even found the High School Musical covers from that show enjoyable because I have seen that show. It's like one of those weird points of pride. I have seen that show. They
mm,
did this musical in one of the seasons, and even there, the songs are so good that it's hard to like even doubt the way that they cover them. Even some of the Broadway ones they did are excellent. I know that's not in the movie, but like
mm.
the Broadway songs are great too for this. If anyone's ever seen the show,
Yeah, I haven't. So, but yeah, no, I love the soundtrack. I'm pretty sure. Well, I think like maybe at least two of them were nominated that year
that year,
for
check.
best song.
That feels right.
I think it was at least two of them. And I mean, Beauty and the Beast is just. I think that song is just beautiful and beautifully sung by Angela Lansbury, who I think was an incredible Mrs. Potts.
Yes.
Um, beautiful animation. I think there's a reason this was nominated for Best Picture that year. I think it absolutely deserved it. Um, and if you would have told me it won, I would have been like, I totally get it. I can see why it didn't win. But they can be wrong. It's okay.
So
Um,
the film had 6 nominations that year total. It was nominated for Best Picture. It won Best Original Score. It was nominated for Best Sound, and then it had 3 nominations for
three.
Best Original
Yeah,
Song. Be Our Guest and Belle were nominated. Beauty and the Beast won.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, be our guest. I think that's such a fun sequence, and
Oh
I
God,
even
yes.
like what they did to the. I even like what they did with that in the remake. I thought it
By
was
the way, Beauty and the Beast, I know it's one of the ones that's more maligned because let's be real, Emma Watson's not the best singer. This is another one of those remakes that I like. I do like the
I like the
movie.
remake too. I really
Yeah.
like the remake. It's probably
Especially,
my
I like Dan
second
Stevens
favorite.
as Beast. I think he does a
Oh
good job with that.
yeah. I think his song too. I think Evermore was such a
Yeah,
great addition to the soundtrack.
and I
Um,
like in that remake, I like the stuff they add for Maurice, like mourning his wife a little bit. Like that stuff, I think
yeah,
even works too.
yeah,
Again, not
that
necessary. Like I'd still watch this film over that one, but the
right.
fat they add to make that film longer works.
And I think you need to do that in a remake because I think they when we got another remake who was just it was just basically a shot for shot remake, it wasn't as well received. I mean, this one wasn't because it's following a nearly perfect animated
Oh god,
movie.
yeah, it's so hard to.
Um,
Yeah,
but I think if you're going to remake a movie, don't just do shot for shot. You need to add things here and there to make it a little different. And why not
I
add a backstory for Maurice?
I thought we proved in 1998 with Psycho that shot for shot didn't work. Why 20 years later are we still doing this? Like,
Right, right. Um, but yeah, again, just beautifully animated and
yeah,
another villain falling to his death.
yeah, another Fallen Fall. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, this movie's damn near perfection. There's not much else I could add. I think you summed it up beautifully. It's a great film, great songs, great vocal performances, and it garners real emotion from you. It really does get you invested in these characters. And is it Stockholm syndrome? Yeah, kind of. But you know what? Just let it ride. Sometimes your kidnapper's not a total piece of shit. That's actually a bad message. Let's move on to my number two. Uh, Speaking of kidnappers that are a total piece of shit, this movie shocked me because I don't think I've seen this movie legitimately since I was like a little kid, and it was one of the ones where I was just like, nah, fuck it, let me throw it on and watch it because I haven't seen it in forever, and I enjoyed the fuck out of it more than I ever thought I would. So much so that I watched it a second time, like a week later, just to be certain that I wasn't insane for putting it this high. My number two is 101 Dalmatians.
Oh wow.
I don't know what it is, but something clicked for me with this movie. Specifically, Cruella, man. That is one of the best villains. I think it might be like she's up there with like Gaston as like one of the best films. Because I'll say, even my number one is my number one, and I have so many reasons to love that movie. The villain is not its strongest point. Uh, Gaston, or not Gaston, excuse me, Cruella is such an entertaining villain, man. She is evil to the core. This is another movie similar to Snow White that has a bit of a sick and twisted sense of humor, and I really enjoy that. Um, I had to pause the movie at one point towards the end because I was dying laughing at the fact that Cruella de Vil jingle. They throw in the fact that Cruella de Vil jingle not only was released as a proper song by this guy, but was also a charting radio hit. Like, it's just, if you're not paying attention to the dialogue, you won't hear it. But it's such a funny thing to throw in that, like, this guy, I mean, that screams one hit wonder for the rest of his career. But the fact that they threw that in is just so funny to me that it's like, I love that. The stuff for Cruella is great. She's a great villain. She's so easy to hate. Like, she's just,
Yeah.
it's such a simple motivation too, right? I want to skin your fucking dog so I can make a coat. It's so easy to hate. It's so simple to set up. One of the decisions that they take that I think really helps with the characters in this movie is they kind of go with the trope of like a dog is like its owner. So is it Roger and Pongo and Anita and I forget the dog's
Perdita,
name,
I believe.
Perdita, are they're so close in personality. But what
Mhm.
I think that benefits this movie is it makes you understand the character that much more because it feels like every time you're seeing one on screen, you're almost getting a bit of both characters. You're kind of fleshing out in general who these people are more. And so even if like in the beginning of the film, a lot of what you're getting is the stuff with the humans. When the dogs sort of take over, then a lot of that character is still entrenched in them. So you're bought into their story of them trying to get their kids back and the fear they have of this woman, and everything is there. Um, it's so dumb, but I love the idea that animals can just communicate by just howling or making whatever sound out into the night, and you can just pick it up perfectly. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a dumb thing, but it's such a great idea, and it makes the movie work. All the little random animal characters are so unique and filled with personality. Even some of the kids, like, they're not on screen very much, all things considered, but like you can start to kind of pick out the little details in each of them and the way they react and interacting with like food or the screen or the little designs of them, how they're different. It's like there was so much detail clearly put into this movie that I really appreciated. Um, what Jasper and Horace, again, two great like just bumbling side antagonists. Yeah, man, I just It's so hard to quantify because it's not often a film that's talked about as like amongst the upper echelon of Disney. I think it's appreciated. I think a lot of people
Yeah,
enjoy it, but it's not regarded as highly. So why it struck me the way it did, I'm not totally sure, aside from just praising what everyone else could praise about it. But it worked for me, man. I had so much fun with this movie. And yeah, it was a blast. Maybe I just like the sick and twisted shit because Pinocchio is pretty twisted. Like maybe I just enjoy that
true.
stuff. But
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. But it just yeah, for me it just wasn't one that I was considering. I enjoy it. I think Cruella is a despicable human being and a great
For sure.
villain. And I think yeah, that Cruella jingle is so catchy and so cool. But yeah, and I enjoy the movie, but
Yeah.
um I think that's about it. I think it's good. Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about it.
Say.
I think Disney's just got so many quality movies that
Hmm.
I think that this just speaks to it because well, you have it at number two, and um, it's not even one that I was considering, but I still think it's a really good
Really
movie.
good movie.
Like,
Again,
I'd still probably give it a
you could
4 out of 5.
make an you could I probably will do it at some point in the future. You can genuinely make a next 11 list with this studio, maybe even a third 11, and you're
Right?
still going to have really good movies on
Yeah.
that list. Which is great for the possibility of keeping the show going long term because Disney's pretty good at pumping them out consistently. So with that said, then okay, so my assumption of what your number one would be is correct. I think. What is your number one?
My number one is The Lion King.
Which is what I assumed it would be. And as we discussed before the show went live, The Lion King is the egregious one that's not in my top 11. So
I realized that after your number one
I
was
punted, yeah,
punted,
your other
and
one.
we still
So
haven't brought it up
and
yet.
and I
Yeah.
just want to say, I I'm going to agree with everything that you're going to say. And if we're talking about villain songs, "Be Prepared" is easily one of the best. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stomp on you. I'm just gonna let you love on it. I think it may be just because it is so highly appraised that maybe something about watching it in my adulthood, because I didn't watch it a whole ton as a kid, maybe something just didn't connect with me quite the same as other people.
Mm.
Um, but it was one of the eight, like the eight honorable mentions. It was definitely there, and it was on the
Yeah.
list for a good while. It was just as you watch more and more movies, and it's like, I don't know if it makes it. But that said,
Mhm.
I'm pissing the people off. You show The Lion King the love it deserves.
Yeah, Lion King, I absolutely love this movie. It's not only top on this list, but it's like my second favorite movie of all time, period. And it's
Damn,
just
what's
it's
number
such a
one?
what?
What's number one?
Mary Poppins.
Hell of a pick.
Another Disney
Hell
movie.
of a pick. Yeah.
But yeah, Mary
No,
Mary
I love
Poppins
that.
is number one. But I love this movie. This is the movie I was talking about where every day before I would go to school, um, because back in my day, we had I guess we had half day kindergarten, so I only had to go half a day, and I went in the afternoon, which means I had the mornings with my grandma when we were
Mm,
living with her. And this was a movie that we had, and I would just put it on, and I don't know why I wanted to cry before kindergarten because every day I would still cry when Mufasa died. Um, that scene. This time it's not a villain falling to his death. It's the dad falling to his death, and it got me, and it gets
yeah.
me still. Not to the same level, but I still think it captures that emotion pretty well. I think the opening Circle of Life sequence is just beautiful. The way they're able to capture all these animals, and it's just such a fun opening sequence, and then we get into the movie and we get into the relationship between Mufasa and Simba, and Simba just absolutely adores his dad. And for the longest time, I had a great relationship with my dad, and I could kind of you know relate to that. So,
Mm,
I think this has some relatability, even though they're animals. I think there's still that relatability there. Uh, I think Zazu was a fun sidekick. I think there's some really great musical numbers, and I'm kind of seeing what you're saying about these musicals like Encanto and stuff being good musicals, because I do think there's some here that are just filler. Like I just can't wait to be king. Well, yes, it sort of serves a purpose because
Mm,
um, Simba can't wait to be king. He knows he's next in line. Um, I feel like that could have also just been like a conversation. um,
yeah,
but of course they ramp it up with the song. And that's yeah, this is the one I was mentioning when they did like a shot for shot remake. Um,
yeah.
and
My God.
this song does not work in live
Oh,
action. You
dude.
cannot have the same sequence. You cannot have the same tower of animals here as you do in live action. And yeah, I love everything about the relationship between Mufasa and Simba up into Mufasa's death, and then you have Scar, who's just I think he's a top tier Disney villain again. If we were ranking them, he'd be top three for sure.
Mm,
Um, I think the fact that he's Simba's uncle, he's Mufasa's brother, and he's so like power hungry, and he wants to be in charge because he was next in line before Simba was born, and so there's that resentment for this little lion cub, and I think another despicable villain working with the hyenas who do not like the lions, and vice versa. And then we get into like the second half of the movie with Timon and Pumbaa coming in, and I think this was going back to that battleground. The only really negative that Austin could think of was yeah, but then you got Pumbaa is just making fart jokes, and it's like yeah, but when you look at it, it kind of works for his character. Uh,
oh, dude, that shit is brilliant. It is such a Hakuna Matata's a great song. It is great.
yeah,
And to be fair, that's one of the few things I think the remake did get right, even with the changes to the joke. I think that still worked.
yeah, yeah, I agree. But yeah, no, that we kind of use that song to transition into adult Simba,
Mm,
who's I think that's great. And we see that Pride Rock is kind of come to nothing pretty much with Scar in charge, and Nala and Simba reunite. I love their relationship that builds. Can you feel the love tonight? And Nala giving Simba the sex eyes. Um,
sex.
yeah, if you look at
Yeah,
it, you know what she
full
was thinking.
no, full on. It is like those are straight up, man. Between the penis in the castle and Nala's fuck me eyes, Disney was horny in the 90s, man.
It's so
Hellfire
true.
existed, like
It's so true. And
those
the
guys.
thing,
I mean, they turned Pocahontas into a romance for God's sakes. Like,
it's funny that you mentioned Pocahontas because I was just about to mention like Pocahontas was supposed to be the bigger movie,
yeah,
and
wow.
like
Can you
the
believe that was the movie they were betting their Oscar odds on?
yeah, and the B level animators were working on the Lion King, and it went on to be like one of the biggest animated movies ever. Still
Shout out
is.
to the P team.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out to them. Again, great voice cast. I think everyone involved here is doing great. I think shout out Whoopi Goldberg as one of the hyenas. I think she gives a great voice performance. Great songs. Be prepared. Great villain song.
Mm,
And yeah, I love the end battle here where Simba doesn't actually he wins, but he doesn't actually like end things. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna leave that to the people you used, and they can take care of you. Pride Rock is restored.
mm.
It's a great movie, great songs. I love this movie absolutely. I could talk about it for hours. Yeah, I couldn't tell you how many times I've watched it, but it's one that I've constantly rewatched. It's probably like one of the top three movies when it comes to just sheer number of watches.
Yeah.
Um, it's like this, and Willy Wonka was one that I watched just
Also a
on
great one.
repeat growing up. So
And
yeah.
Willy Wonka as a young kid, you matured quick. That was that movie. Woo.
Yeah, that was more of a younger younger teen.
Okay, gonna
Yeah.
say, but I don't know if I put that on for my 5-year-old all the
No, no,
time.
that was more like younger teen into
That's
my
fair.
older teen years, and now
Yeah,
as an
man.
adult, I still just throw it on.
The thing I've always been able to give The Lion King is even if I don't have I guess the best way to say it is even if I don't quite have the love for it that a lot of other people do, Disney doing Shakespeare is one of the craziest things that I've ever heard. Like the fact that they even thought to tackle Shakespeare, it's fucking worthy of it. It's epic. Like it's
Yeah.
genuinely epic. In terms of scale, in terms of animation. I mean, that wildebeest scene is an achievement. Like it's so well done.
Mhm.
As you said, the fight scene at the end is great. Do you think Zack Snyder was inspired by it for the rest of his career with the slow mo?
It's I mean, there's worse movies to be inspired by.
Hey, that's fair. Um, yeah, man, there's a lot to respect about it, and obviously, it was a big milestone for the company. I mean, it's is it the it's like the only non-Frozen Disney film I think that earned a bit, or well, it's the only film of that time certainly that earned $1 billion. Now that I say that out loud, I don't know if others may have earned $1 billion, but it's the only film of its time that earned that type of money, which is
Yeah,
incredible.
I think when you adjust for inflation, I think it might be, like, one of the top.
Yeah, um, and it is, and it is, it's like as dark as it goes, it still knows how to have fun. I think this movie does nail the balance a lot better of the humor and the darkness than say like something like Hunchback does for me. I think this movie
Yeah,
absolutely nails it.
yeah, and it's one of the few that spawned a direct-to-video sequel that is actually good
Dude,
in
I
my
like all
opinion too.
I like listen, I may not like The Lion King as much as everybody else does. I will vouch for both those sequels. I think they're
Yeah,
genuinely both solid.
I agree, yeah, I love the fact I love where, like, you wanna have I think it's just, hey, people love Timon and Pumbaa, so let's retell the story from their perspective,
Yeah, man.
and it
I
worked.
Dude, it was like a year ago. I was hanging out with a friend at his apartment, and he's the type of person where he'll like turn on a streaming service and then just scroll till he finds something. So he was just like scrolling through Disney Plus, and I don't know what category he was on that this movie popped up, but it showed up Lion King 1.5, and he was like, "What is that?" I was like, "You don't know what this is?" And he's like, "No, I've never heard of this." And I was like, "Put it on." I was like, "Listen, it's so stupid, and it's for kids, but put it on."
And it works.
And it works. It's funny, man. It does work. Um, like I genuinely funny moment in that movie is because I mean half the jokes in that movie is just having them walk into random Lion King scenes, but having them walk upon the Nazi march of be prepared and just being like, let's just back out of the room real quick is one of the funniest, just because all you see is the shadows of them saluting, and it's like that is funny.
Yeah.
um Also, speaking of dark imagery in Disney films, yeah, that was definitely a Nazi march. Like no two
Yeah,
ways
it
about
definitely
that.
was.
Yeah. All right. So that anything else, man, or is that your number one?
That's my number 1.
All right. So then we'll go on to my number one, which is of course the pun from earlier, Aladdin. Um, it's just as simple as growing up. This was the movie I gravitated to the most. It's the one I've probably seen the most times. I still enjoy it now as much as I did the first time I saw it. I think the story is timeless. I think the romance is one of the more believable ones of the time. Robin Williams is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, the dude is single-handedly credited with inspiring the adaptation of celebrities into animated films. Like single-handedly, he changed the course of the voice acting industry. Some would argue maybe for the worst, um, to some extent. But I think that he opened a door for a lot of actors to really find room in animation when they may not have before. Um, and I mean, his influence on the film is so potent. Like the fact that this screenplay was legitimately considered for best adapted screenplay that year at the Oscars, and they had to throw it out because he changed so much of the written screenplay that it wasn't even what was submitted. That they were like, we can't consider this. Like we want to, but we legitimately can't consider it because it's so different from what's in the movie. Um, it is, yeah, man. It's so much fun. Uh,
Yeah.
uh yeah, like it. After all these years, it's almost so hard. Again, it's similar. It's almost so hard for me to just go on and on about what I know that loves it because it is a film that is beloved by all. Like, there's not a detractor out there talking about why Aladdin sucks. It does have one glaring weakness. I'll give it that. Jafar is not the best villain. Um, but that said, I don't think he nearly detracts enough from the movie to make all the other stuff that is 10 out of 10 level not enjoyable. So yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's just it's cutthroat and dry for me like that. It is the best they've ever done. As I said, Musker and Clements are the best directors that have ever worked for Disney. I think this is the pinnacle of their career. Um, and I think this movie, its pacing, how quick it moves, its adventure styling, because I feel like this movie really propelled Disney towards the adventure thing and that quick pace sort of element to it. I think even into as recently as something like Strange Worlds, like when you look at the adventure action, it's very paced very quickly, and you can see the influence from Aladdin still to this day on the way they make movies.
yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, and I also agree with what you're saying about Jafar. Because I think the reason that I have it at 3 and not
Yeah, it's fair,
at
totally fair.
2 or 1 is when you look at my list, at least my top 7, all of these movies have fantastic villain songs, and I think that that's one of the things I'm looking for, especially in like these Disney
Mm,
more
yeah, he doesn't
musical.
have a song.
When yeah, he has that reprise that that he does, but it's not a genuine villain song. And I'm like, I think that's the only thing I was missing, because all these other musicals have that, and for the most part, when it's the best, sometimes the best song in the movie.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of them, yeah.
So and Aladdin just didn't have that, and I'm like, I'm kind of missing that, and so that's kind of what knocked it down below um, Lion King and Beauty and the Beast. But I agree with everything else you're saying. I think Robin Williams is incredible here. The genie is,
Yeah.
I think he's just like the most iconic Disney movie character. And there could be an argument that he's just the most iconic Disney character not named Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna say outside of Mickey, yeah.
So, yeah, and then yeah, I think the romance is believable, like you were saying. Um, I'm not, yeah, like I can't disagree with anything that you're saying. These three, I always say that if The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, or Aladdin is your number one, I get it.
Yeah, yeah, genuinely. It is like I know people go on and on about how great the Renaissance was, and obviously it was important for the company, but like it is legitimately, it's probably the most consistent era that they were swinging, and specifically these 5 years. Like I think people will look back on this section of filmmaking in Disney's history, and hell, I'll even throw Rescuers Down Under
Oh,
in there. I mean,
great movie.
it's doesn't hold a candle to any of these films, but it's still very good. But
It,
like
it was part of the five. It was part of the five contending for that number
it was
11.
that's fair. But like genuinely, those 5 films back to back to back: Little Mermaid, Rescuers, and then the trio of Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Lion King. If those 5 don't all do what they do in that time period, I don't think Disney succeeds to today. Like they
No.
genuinely revitalized interest in animation. They revitalized interest in the company because like Disney came like obviously Disney had a tough 80s, but the 80s also had other outlets filling in animation.
Hmm.
Obviously the pinnacle of them being Don Bluth, and it seemed like all of them kind of came crashing down going into the 90s, and that's when Disney finally found its stride again.
Yeah.
And it's led to 20 more years, they're pushing 30 years nearly of experimentation. I mean, immediately, right? Hunchback is an experiment. It's a different film for Disney.
Yeah.
And it gave them Hercules is an experiment. I mean, that's a weird ass movie, but it works. And so yeah, I think it led to many great things for the company. So yeah, you're right. I think any of those 3, even with Lion King not being in my top 11, like any of those 3, I think is a great pick.
Agreed.
So yeah, any more thoughts on it? Are we ready to go?
I think we're ready to go.
All right, so we will move on to building the list here. I've been keeping uh, notes, so let me pull those back up. All right, so obviously your number one is Lion King, which I don't have, but I'm okay conceding that it'll be near the top. I'm certainly not going to fight that at all.
Yep.
So what we could do is when you look at because what we have in common, obviously my number one is your number 3. Or if you would prefer, I'd be okay with pushing Beauty and the Beast up to 1, considering it's your 2, my 3. It's technically a closer gap than 1-3.
I'm fine with
And your weaknesses with Aladdin, I'm willing to concede, and that Beauty and the Beast certainly is a better villain.
if that's what I'm fine either way.
So I'm cool with that. I feel like it's a compromise of the visions. So I'm cool with that. We'll put Beauty and the Beast. I feel like we're not pissing anyone off by doing that. So Beauty and the Beast can go to 1, which means I'll put Aladdin at 2. And I'll put The Lion King at 3 because it is your number 1, and certainly it is. Even again, it's not on my list, but that's a personal thing. It's up there for sure. All right, so then Moana's our 4-5.
Yeah.
So I'll put that straight at number 4. All right, so the only 2 we have left in common, we have The Little Mermaid, which is your 6, my 10, and then we have Zootopia, which is both our number 8s. So we can just put those straight at 5, 6 if you want, or we can look at what comes next and then put those a little further down the list.
No, I'm fine with that since we have those in common.
So put those up higher. So that would mean
I'd be fine with that.
Okay, works for me. So that would mean The Little Mermaid settles in at 5. And Zootopia will bounce up to 6. So that's our commonalities done. So then we'll just go to what is your next film that's not on the list?
I have Hunchback at 5.
Hunchback at 5? Okay, so I have...
You have
101 Dalmatians.
Yeah.
At 2.
Then you have Pinocchio at 4.
Yeah, and I have Pinocchio at 4. And then what was your next one? It was Hunchback, right?
Yeah.
All right. And then what was your next one?
I had Tangled at 7.
Tangled at 7? All right.
Yeah.
So I have Encanto at 6. And then I also had my 7 with Raya, but considering Tangled was on my honorable mentions, and you said Raya wasn't, I'll concede that. No problem.
Okay.
Considering I did consider your 7, you said you didn't with mine. That's totally a fair concession. All right, and that will do it. Easy peasy. So with that said, we'll go ahead and jump into the list. If I could just have you do the countdown for me, and then I'll say the films as we read them out loud. But with all that said, we'll go ahead and jump into the top 11 Disney animated films of all time.
Okay, from 11 to 1?
Yep.
All right, so at number 11.
Tangled.
At number 10.
Encanto.
At number 9.
The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
At number 8.
Pinocchio.
At number 7.
101 Dalmatians.
Number 6.
Zootopia.
Kicking off the top 5.
The Little Mermaid.
Number 4.
Moana.
At number 3.
The Lion King.
Our runner-up at number 2.
Aladdin.
And coming in at number 1.
Beauty and the Beast.
It's a solid list.
A very, very solid list. Yeah, man. So before we go ahead and wrap up and get out of here, any honorable mentions you wanted to shout out that didn't already come up?
Yeah. So besides the ones that made your list that I was thinking about, I also had Big Hero 6.
Okay.
Was
another great one.
Contender. The Great Mouse Detective. Mm-hmm. And then, like I just mentioned, The Rescuers, Down Under. Although The Rescuers also could have been in contention.
Yeah, and again, that's how many other ones are, because I had 4. So there was the 4 that made your list that were on my honorable mentions: Hunchback of Notre Dame, Lion King, Tarzan, Tangled. The other ones that I had were what was competing for 11, which I said this to you off air, what was competing for 11 for me with Snow White was Lilo and Stitch. That is, so I said, Tarzan, my opinion definitely changed on when I rewatched it. Lilo and Stitch is the only film from that era that I would say I genuinely love. Because I really like Tarzan, but I think Lilo and Stitch is the only film from that era I genuinely love. It definitely stands out as the best. And if anything, if you're a fan of the How to Train Your Dragon films, it's the same filmmakers that made Lilo and Stitch. So if you for whatever reason, if you've not seen Lilo and Stitch somehow, go watch it because all the things you love about those movies are in this movie for sure. And honestly, like, because I spent a lot of time talking about the remakes, honestly, this is one of the few remakes I'm genuinely interested in, and that's only because it's Dean Fleischer Camp, who I thought did a great job with Marcel the Shell. Like, if it were anybody else, I don't think I would give a flying fuck. But because it's him, I'm gonna hope.
Yeah.
I'm not holding out too much hope, but I'm gonna hope. So the other ones, Wreck-It Ralph, I've always been a big fan of. Another classic one, Dumbo. Racist. Racist, but very good. Those crows can sing, but they're also a stereotype. And then this one is more so because, like, you talked about putting The Jungle Book on your list because it's just like it's a cute, fun film that you can kind of just put on and enjoy. For me, that's always been The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I don't know what it is, man. Just it's such a easy, fun, specifically because it is kind of a combination of short films. Specifically, the Tigger one is such a that character. I watched it downstairs, and my little sister, she's 16, she had never seen it, so she sat with me and watched it. And when I say her confusion at me absolutely dying of laughter, because it's again simple joke, but the Tigger Tigger always kills me. It's just such a simple joke to go for, but it's so great. And I forget the actor's name, but his delivery of it is excellent. Yeah, man. So that movie's always done it for me. I guess for shouting out Winnie the Pooh, the 2011 one is also solid for what it's worth, but the original is the best in my opinion. So that's it, man. And of course, so many other great films. Like, I know we joked earlier about Oliver and Company, but that Billy Joel song lives in both my dreams and my nightmares. That song's excellent.
Really great song.
The Fox and the Hound is a great one. Another one from the 80s. That's another really good one. There's so many great Disney movies, man.
There is. I could have easily kept going on my list, and I honestly I feel like I could go to like 40 or 45 before I start getting the movies where I'm just like, eh.
Yeah, man. It was like when picking what to rewatch for this episode, it was so difficult because it was like there was like that list of immediately like, okay, I'm not even considering Chicken Little. I'm not even considering Pocahontas. I'm not even considering but that was a very short and quick list. And then it's like, all right, cool. There's like 40 of these.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Pocahontas is one where it's not a great movie.
No.
But the animation is beautiful and the songs are fantastic.
Yeah,
but the story is just
it's a movie. I think when I rewatched it, because a couple of years ago, it was for like a trivia match or something. I did a rewatch of all the Renaissance films because it was selected as a strength. So I was like, fuck it, that'll be fun to watch in case I get it. So I watched them all, and Pocahontas, it was like issues with the story aside, like the actual issues with it aside, it's also just kind of a boring film. And so it's like I think I gave it like a 5 out of 10 because it's like, man, like technically there's a lot to appreciate here, but man, like I think my brother described it perfectly when he said, this is Disney's equivalent of an Oscar bait film. Like you always hear about these Oscar bait movies that like every year there's a couple of films that just aren't good enough for the Oscars, but they're clearly trying to be those films. That's what Pocahontas is. It's like it wants that acclaim, but it's not good enough for it. So yeah, man. So that is the top 11 Disney films of all time. This was a super fun list, a super fun episode. Probably the most, like the biggest differential in terms of crossovers. I think, and again, it makes sense because there's so many different ones that it is all just to your taste. But Yeah, it was either that or it was the first episode we did, the best films of the 2020s with Matt Beer. Because again, also big list of films to
Mm,
pick from, so it makes sense
yeah,
that there's a difference.
yeah.
But yeah, man. So go ahead before we wrap up. Anything you want to plug, shout out? Where can people find you?
Yeah, not knowing when this is gonna upload. I mean, we're recording this in December.
The plan, if all goes on time, is probably around New Year's Eve.
Okay, so in that case, yeah, I haven't really done much on my own in the month of December, but yeah, month of January over on the Movie Hero Network, I plan on bringing back a podcast about movies with Austin Howell. Our first episode will be kind of wrapping up 2023, and then also do a wrestling podcast on that same channel on Thursdays called The Lonely Marks, where our first episode will be kind of also doing a recap of 2023 and kind of doing our own awards type show.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's where you can catch me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't promote your guys' podcast enough with you and Pez. It's an open joke at this point that there are very few things in the community I actually sit down and watch all the way through. I have listened to episodes of your guys' show all the way through. You guys have two very distinct, I think, views on movies, and I think it makes for a really interesting discussion. So definitely go check
Oh,
that out, guys. It's a great show.
appreciate
Uh,
that.
of course, man, and of course, I'd love to have you back on in the future whenever we have a topic that suits your interest. This was a lot of fun, man. But
Yeah,
with
I
that
enjoyed it.
said, be sure to stick around, guys. As I said last week, we have a number of episodes coming up over the next few weeks, including an episode on Star Wars films. We're going to be doing a DCEU memoriam because it's over, so we might as well. And a couple of other great films topics coming up in January. But with that said, on behalf of Jacob and myself, thank you guys for watching. Please be sure to subscribe, interact in the comments. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Did we sleep on Bolt? That was the most shocking one when I was looking at thoughts on films. Bolt has a surprisingly high critic reception for a movie that I've just never put that much thought into. Like,
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah,
I was shocked by how many. I mean, look, Travolta can be fun, man, but I was shocked by how many people like that movie. But yeah, guys, put your comments in the thoughts, and we will see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody. Thank you.